Welcome back to Bazar Holidays. We started this journey in the wood shop, then talked about beautiful dog coats, and in the last episode, we went into the kitchen for sugar cookies and cocoa bombs. This is episode 4, and we're taking it truly out of this world. I have to tell you, I was at a bazaar several weeks ago and came across this story because the items on display were unbelievable. We're talking about journals decorated with an amazing dragon design, and you really need to check out my social channels to see exactly what I'm talking about. They're really breathtaking, and you will be just as shocked as I was when you find out exactly how they're made. So here we go. Buckle up and go with me into this fantasy world where dragons rule and their eyes just might hold the secrets to what makes this holiday season especially festive. How would you describe what you make, and then briefly sort of touch on what makes it so unique as far as the process goes?
Well, let's see. I call it a dragon skin, just because to me it looks like a skin, and I can put it onto various items. I actually started with a dragon egg with the same process, and then I moved to a more useful item because useful items sell better than decorative items for the most part. So a useful item is the dragon books. I make my own eyes. I use a cabochon and I scratch them out individually to make all the lines on the eyes, to make them all individual. And then in the end, I end up putting eggshells down on the book to give it the texture. And then after all the paint and the glue and all of that stuff is on, you can still feel the texture of it. It's nice and smooth, and it gives you that, reptilian feel, I guess.
And it is incredibly convincing. Like, you would think that you were using reptile skin. Like, this looks amazing, and it's beautiful. It's shiny, and it catches your eye immediately at your booths. Talk to me about the evolution. So how did you figure out that this was a craft to begin with? And then talk to me about going from eggs to the book, sort of what that whole evolution has been like.
Okay, so in the beginning, I don't even remember what my first thought was. Like, I was trying to find something. You always try to find something that's unique, that you can put your own fingers on. You know, when you go to a bazaar, there are so many different things. However, there's a lot of repeats, even if they put their own little touch on it. Mm-hmm. So I remember seeing something about a dragon egg. I have been obsessed with dragons, I don't even know how long, for forever. So I was like, ooh, it'd be really cool to make dragon eggs. That would be something that no one has done, or you don't see very often anyway. So I was like, okay, that would be really fun. When you look at how to make a dragon egg, you see all the people that use the thumbtacks that they paint, and they just stick them in a styrofoam cup, and that wasn't what I wanted. Mm-hmm. I wanted something that looked like an egg, that felt like an egg. And so once I found this process of putting eggshells on and how that worked, I was like, okay, how can I make that work on an egg shape? So I did a few of them. I just basically did the balloon, and I think I did not really paper mache, but along that line. So then I did some more research on how to make eggs. How do you make those eggs? And then I found plaster of Paris. So plaster of Paris inside a balloon, and you shake it around a little bit to get the plaster of Paris around, and then you can break the balloon. Mm-hmm. And you'll be left with an egg shape. It's still pretty fragile because plaster of Paris that thin can just crumble in your hands. So you have to find the right, thickness of it when you're rolling it around. So once I had that, then I could put eggshells on that, but it didn't feel like an egg because I wanted them to be authentic feeling. Mm-hmm. So when you pick up an egg from the refrigerator from the chicken, it actually has some weight on it. You're not just picking up the shell. but it just felt like the shell. So then I went further than that and actually added some weight to it. So I added more plaster of Paris. I weighted it a little bit so they actually felt better. And then I worked on the outside of it with the shells, and then I got the shells on it, and then I would paint them. And in my mind, a dragon shell or a dragon egg is always shiny.
Yeah.
It has to be shiny. It has to be that metallic, oh my gosh, it shines in the sun. It grabs your attention. So that's where I came up with the look of the metallic. So I only painted the eggs in silver, gold, bronze. That's what I did. Oh, I think copper too. So those colors, those metallic colors. But now, obviously, I do a lot more than that. I think I went to a couple of holiday bazaars with the eggs and a few other things, but the eggs were the big thing. And while it got a lot of attention, not very many people wanted to take it home because, again, it's a decorative item. I grabbed the attention of like the Dungeon and Dragon Masters, those kind of people, which was kind of cool because then they can take it home and use it as a prop in their game. And so I was like, wow, that's pretty neat. At the time, I also had a 3D printer available to me, and I was able to design a claw that was a holder for the eggs. But then again, they weren't selling like I was hoping they would because, well, people like them, people don't have space for them.
Right.
So I started thinking, well, what else can I do with this dragon skin to make it more relevant to the world and to get it out there so that people can enjoy it without going, gosh, I don't have any space to put this.
So let's dive into the reactions you get from people just a little bit more. You know, obviously people are amazed because it's, you know, such a unique thing, but talk to me a little bit more about how people have reacted to seeing these objects that you have at your booth.
I kind of started this in the middle of COVID, so I wasn't able to really get an idea of how well things would sell. You know, I started the eggs right before COVID. COVID hit, nothing happened for 2 years, and then you go back out there. So you're like, okay, I've been trying all this stuff as I go. So what can I do to make this work? So this last summer, I went to a craft fair. It was at the Harry Potter celebration at McMiniman's, and they have very limited vendors there, but they had seen my book and they're like, wow, these are really cool. Can you come? And I was like, oh, sure, whatever. I can do that. So
and perfect for
my books.
And perfect for Harry Potter.
It was, except I was not prepared for it, and I did not have the product I needed.
Oh.
I sold out of all my dragon eggs on the first night. And then I sold out of all my books the next day, and I still had a day and a half to go.
Oh, man.
So I know that they were great and they were wonderful, and people were, yes, awe-inspired by them. And that to me was what it's all about, is to sit there and find something that people go, I want that because it's exactly what I feel. I can see it. Oh my gosh, I can touch it. That's the first response everybody has is, can I touch it?
Well, yeah, it's like a piece of their imagination personified.
Exactly. And then they touch it, then they're like, wait, what is this made of? Because you can't tell that it's really eggshells because it doesn't feel like an eggshell. And then they're like, oh my gosh, it's fragile because it's an eggshell. And I'm like, no, it's not fragile. You can drop this sucker and it's not gonna it's not gonna crack. It's not an eggshell anymore. It's just the texture of it. So that in itself is just it feels, I don't even know how to describe how it feels when people come up and just are just awe-inspired by what they're seeing. I mean, it's a mythical beast. No one's ever seen it, and yet everyone knows what it is.
Yeah.
That, to me, is what makes this product such a great, I don't know, it just covers all the ages. It just is out there.
When you told me that it was made of real eggshell, I was completely dumbfounded and astonished that something like that existed. So talk to me specifically about kind of where you get all the eggshells and kind of and how you sort of process them to the point where you're painting them and getting them ready to be part of your product.
Right. I have a couple people that collect them for me, so it's not just me. But I do collect them year-round now because this is a product that I'm going to need them for as I go forward. So I have a couple people that actually collect them for me. And all I ask them to do is just rinse out the grossness inside, and then they can send them to me or get them to me. And then what I do is I soak them in hot water for a couple of days usually. And then you have to peel off the membrane. There's a membrane on the inside of the eggshells. Otherwise, the eggs would leak out through the shell because the shell is actually kind of porous. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so once the membrane, it kind of hardens after it sits in the water, so you can peel it out fairly easily. And then you peel that out, throw that away, and then you just have the eggshell left. And then I let those dry because they've been soaking for a little bit. So I let those dry for a little bit, and then they're ready. Basically, someone asked me one time how I store my eggshells, and I said, well, in egg cartons, because I have the cartons from all the other eggs.
Right.
So I literally have a box of eggshells in egg cartons in my craft room. That's where I store them so that I have them when I have them.
So wait, let me ask a question here. So when people are collecting these shells for you, or you're collecting them for yourself, are they eggshells that they've used the eggs, or you get them cracked?
Yeah, you just crack them open, use them, and then you just rinse out the eggshell and then give them to me. And then I soak them and then use the eggshell. So yeah, they're. I don't go out specifically to just buy 5 dozen eggs and then crack them and lose the middle.
Right.
We actually use them. Yeah. So they
so it's recycling.
Exactly. I actually had someone at my last bazaar say, wow, you're the ultimate recycler.
Right. And then talk to me about the eyes, because this is something I didn't ask you about, because I just sort of assumed you bought the eyes, but I didn't realize you actually make them.
Okay, so the eyes are on a glass cabochon. So I go and buy various size cabochons, and they can be either oval or round. And again, they come in various sizes. I use the smaller ones for my keychains. It's completely glass, so they're manufactured. I've done jewelry making before as well, so I've done a whole plethora of stuff. But a cabochon is basically flat on the bottom and domed on the top. So the back of it is a flat surface, and then it's domed on the top, so that it kind of magnifies what's on the bottom of it. So a lot of people will use a cabochon and do it as a magnet, and then you can just stick some picture or whatever underneath it, and then put it up on your refrigerator with a magnet, and then you have this nice little glass magnet. But it looks really nice because the picture shows through clearly and all of this. All right, so I take the cabochon, and on the flat surface, so the bottom side, I actually paint it with fingernail polish.
Okay.
Once the fingernail polish is partly dry, not completely wet, not completely dry, then I scrape it off. I use an awl, an AWL, awl, and I scrape striations basically in it. So I'm putting lines through the nail polish. And then once I've scraped off one color, then I'll put a different color to go into those scratches that I've made. And then I'll scratch it again and put another color in. So you can get the depth of all those different colors, just like a real eye. If you look at a real eye, look at yourself in the mirror, you can see how many different colors are actually in a brown eye, in a blue eye, in a green eye. You can see the different colors in there.
Right.
And that is the goal, is to make it look real.
Start to finish for one of your books, one of your journals, how long does it take for one to be produced?
Oh, gosh. That's a tough question because there's a lot of drying time in there and a lot of other time. And I don't actually start one book and make it all the way through. Usually I do them in batches. So I do one part of it for everything. Like I'll make all of the eyes. And the eyes can take me up to a month to do. I think this last time I did, I was probably close to 200 eyes. And I just did them. So all month long, I just worked on eyes. And then the next thing I'll do is I'll glue the eyes on the books, and I'll do I have to put tissue paper down on some of the books because they're nice and shiny, so I glue tissue paper on so the eggshells will stick. So that's another step. And then you put the eggshells down, and then you paint them. So if I had to guess, not counting drying time, but just simply my work on them, maybe 48, 72 hours, something like that. For the larger books, probably less than that for the smaller books, because they have less eggshells on them, less things, because they're just a smaller book. But yeah, if I went with a larger book, that would probably be about what I'm spending time on. So,
wow. Yeah. So that's a lot of time to take out of your life, out of your day, out of your week. So what is it that you get out of this process beyond sort of the selling aspect and other people's reaction? What does it do for you personally?
I guess you could say I've always had my fingers in art. Mm-hmm. My mom tells me that when I was even little, just 3-4 years old, I would sit in the corner and cut things out of the newspaper or whatever, just pictures. I would just cut. And I was perfectly happy doing that, apparently. I don't remember it, but hey, that's fine. But as you go through, I mean, I've always made things. And it's not only for me, but to have other people, look at it and say, wow, that's something that I really like. I would love to have that myself. And people can't always do that themselves. And I think for me, even though I sit here and spend all this time, I love doing fiddly stuff. I just do. I don't know. It gives me something to do. It makes me happy to do fiddly stuff that makes other people happy, because I know people don't want to spend the time doing it themselves. Mm-hmm. People say I could make that. I could blah, 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 whatever. But they don't. That's why we have the craft fairs. That's why we go to the bazaars. That's why we sell things, because people that can't make them want to have something that is unique and handmade and something that someone else made. And it makes them happy. So therefore, all of my stuff makes me happy to make it, because I know that in the end, it'll find a good home. But it gives people that glimpse into that make-believe world that brings it into our reality, that makes them happy. That's so dragons for me, designing these and making these and finding out different things or different ways that people can put them into their life, for me is kind of cool.
Where does your mind go while you're doing these fiddly things?
I don't know, 10 years ago or so, I got divorced. I had 2 small kids at home, and I really had no skills that I could put out into the world. So I had to go back to school and find something that I could do to support my family. And I decided to become an accountant, because it's something that you always need, no matter what. Somebody needs an accountant. Mm-hmm. So I went back and studied accounting school, and I remember my kids asking me, they're like, "Mom, you're doing math all the time. How can you be creative?" It kind of struck me as, wow, because they're always seeing me do things, photography, this. I was always doing something creative and always doing scrapbooking or doing this or doing that. I was doing things all the time that were kind of cool and creative. And they're like, "You're going to be doing math, Mom. How is that creative?" I had a job one time I was a chocolatier. I made chocolates, for goodness sake. So, when you go from that to I'm sitting at a desk working on a spreadsheet all the time, how does that help you with your creativity? Now, let me tell you, Excel can be really fun too, but not like this. But, it's one of those things that you have to have that outlet. You have to be able to create, and you have to get your mind in that space, because if I had to do accounting all the time, oh my gosh, I would be the most boring person ever. Right. So you have to engage that creativity. You have to use that side of your brain that gives you that joy by itself. So doing this, even putting the little eggshells on one piece at a time, helps do that, because in the end, that result will be just really, really great. So.
Right. What I love so much about this episode is learning how a beautiful craft can be made out of something as ordinary and as unexpected as eggshells. Be sure to check out my social channels to see everything we talked about. You can find me on all of them at Jordan J. Frasier. My thanks to Theresa for chatting with me, and to you for listening and coming along with me on this Bazar Holidays journey. In our next and last episode, it's one of my favorite topics, owls. It will be a real holiday hoot. Until next time, for these Bazar Holidays.